Frank Lee, homie.
Stay tuned in for the KTTeeV radio show. Full of nothing but inspiration and motivation on 95.3 Jams. Here's KT.
What to do, KTTeeV radio audience? I wanted to welcome you to the KTTeeV radio show here on 953 Jams. I'm not gonna lie, y'all, I don't know what number of the show because I'll just stop counting, but I want to say I'm glad to be here with you all again for another week. We got a lot of developments that's been going on this week, but before we get into anything, I want to give a big shout out to everybody that is listening through the app. I want to say thank you for tuning in, but also I want to shout out to everybody who is tuned in on the Facebook. Like I said, if you haven't downloaded the app, then make sure you get there. That way you can hear more of the music in between, because I try to keep us rolling with some good up-to-date jams in between all this good knowledge that we are putting out. For today, we have a good show, y'all. Of course, we'll go through all of our music and we'll go through all of our content as far as our quote of the day, our stories, talking about our money. But more importantly, today I have one of my closest friends coming in, soon to be doctor, so I just call him Doc. Kellian Hughes is going to be stopping by. He is getting his doctorate in special populations, educational leadership. And so he's going to come by and talk to us a little bit about special ed, about inclusion, and what does that look like as far as getting kids back in the building and trying to start filling these gaps that we have. Because we know that is very important and that is going to be a big deal as testing will roll on this week. So I want to make sure that we're looking for that. Looking at this week, let's see what of course we're getting ready. We got our first group of kids coming in next week. And so we have been preparing the building, putting up our signs, just really being on top of things. So I want to say I'm looking forward to that. It's been a lot going on, but at the end of the day, we started this for the babies. And so I do miss the babies. So I'm looking forward to seeing those guys. Wrapped up season 2 of the podcast this week. Finished with Miss Alicia Monique. And so what she does is she coaches salons. And so the thing she said was, we can talk about salons, but the biggest part of that is she does business. And so when you think about business, you think about your structures, you think about what has to be set up for the team to win. And so she said that's how the owners win. And so we had a good conversation. She's down in Florida making some good things happen, but she has a website, and so she's able to, just set up salon owners or anybody who's looking to move from a stylist to an owner by really just making sure she starts with your mindset. So that was awesome to be able to talk to her. I was able to talk to Miss Shante Gamble today. We had a nice quick little power lunch. And so she has some good things going. We really talked a lot about her magazine and a newsletter. She started to say she was about to invoice me for the conversation, but hopefully she doesn't email me anything. But I want to say thank you for that time today. But overall, really good week. A lot accomplished. I'm glad to get that season 2 under my belt. It just takes some time, so that's what we'll be doing. But now, getting into the show. We start every show out with the quote of the day. So if you have not been following us on any of the platforms, just search KTTeeV. Then you may not know, but every morning I try to put out a quote that gives someone just a little bit to get through that day, whether it's specific to women or it could be just a motivational to get your Monday set up. And so each day I try to do a little different genre. And so for today, we'll look at the first quote, and it says, "It is not our job to be everything to everyone." And so I'll repeat that again. It is not our job to be everything to everyone. And so when we break that down, we think about the bane of our lives is to live up to the expectations of basically the whole world. And that's starting from our parents, to our teachers, to our peers, and to our family. It's like the weight of the entire world is on our shoulders, and everyone seems to have such lofty expectations from us. And the thing is, you can make a choice. You can fall into that trap, or you cannot. But once we do fall into that trap of pleasing others, we're pretty much trapped for life. And so then after trying all our life, we still manage to disappoint many people. So this is what needed. So you think about, why do I need to please everyone in the first place, right? And so then really our duty is to ourselves. So we have to be loyal to our dreams and our aspirations. And then when we reach that success, we'll realize everyone is clapping for us. But the big thing is focus on not having to be everything to everyone. That is not our job, your first job. Be loyal to your dreams, be loyal to your aspirations, be loyal to yourself. And I think that's something big to get us started for the day. Once again, I want to thank everyone for tuning in. What could be going on in those type of situations? But they was awarded this week, were awarded this week, and I want to say I've seen figures of like 12 million, but I don't know for sure. But you think about, does that money, I know it'll help, it'll change things, but how do you still be happy about that when you don't get your family member back? So I guess it's kind of bittersweet, but I'm glad that they did, take some kind of accountability for what happened, and they awarded that family. Our last one of our news for today is really talking about the city, and so everything tomorrow will increase to 75% capacity. And so, hey, you wonder what's going to happen. This could go one of two ways. So you got businesses that are service businesses, and if people don't have any money, we're not spending, economy goes down. So with this increase in people, you say, okay, this is good because they will increase in tables, which will increase in waiters, which will bring the workforce back. As an investor, you look at businesses and you say, well, the only way they thrive is by selling something. And so as we look at opening to 75%, that's good. But then you look at the amount of people that will start being in places. And so that is a gift and a curse. So that is something that we will keep our eye on as well. Because, like I say, at the end of the day, this increase could be the difference between someone making rent and someone not making rent. So we want to check all of that coming up. That would be our news for today. I try to do my best to keep you all informed of what's going on in our community, what's going on in our world, but moreover, what's going on in the city of Houston. So just check that out each week. Coming up next, we have our interview with Dr. Kellian Hughes. And I say that because, hey man, he defending right now, so we about to get this out the way, man. So I'm looking forward to talking to Doc, basically talking about special ed inclusion, what happens as we come back into school and we try to fill those gaps. All right, so stay tuned. We'll be right back. This is the KTTeeV radio show here on 953 Jam. That just means the information that you had, even on a platform like that, man, it was important,
Yeah, that's all. Anytime you can encourage work, so far as education, hoping to be better, it's always good.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And so, man, I wanted to, before we even get into things, man, could you give a little bit of background, man, on your experience in SPED? And what made you say, I'm going to take this experience further, man, and get that doctoral in special populations?
Oh, So, man, anytime people pose me that question, typically, so we start back with our easy days, things like that. But I tell people my journey for special education actually started when I was younger, when I was around, 8 years old. Moved from Michigan to Mississippi, and struggling in school with myself. And I took all the time. I was a 504 student, growing up, so I identify with those struggles of kids we service. So, kind of dealing with that struggle myself through my elementary years, through, I would say, late middle school. I had to support, great teachers to kind of help me out through that. So, to me, once I got to college, it was a no-brainer after I started flipping through the bulletins and figuring out what I want to do with my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, oh, that's it. I gotta help some kids. I gotta do that model that some teachers work for me during elementary school. Miss Winters, Miss Blaylock, I can go on and on. So, but fast forward, probably a couple of years later in my collegiate, career, I had a college professor, Dr. Carl, my very first special education class, and he kind of inspired me the way that he delivered his instruction to us and kind of things that he kind of talked about regarding special ed. So from that point on, I believe it was 1996, in spring semester, I began signing my paper in his class, Dr. Hughes. And he asked me one day, who signed the paper? And I told him it was me. And I told him, because one day I'm going to be just like you.
Yeah.
So it kind of started again. And then fast forward, 3 kids later, I'm able to really put that grind in and work and try to finish the thing off this semester. And I just want to kind of get that also from my grandmother and, our ancestors before. We always talk about we want to do things that our ancestors kind of prayed for us and didn't have the ability to. So that's always the goal, man. So it's been a grind, but it's almost over, brother.
Yeah, it's almost over, man. And I just want to say congratulations, man. My friend Sam, we did an interview. And so I told him, man, it's so awesome, man, to be able to see your kids, see you go through this, man, in those days when you got to balance work, family, school, and those struggles, and the anguish that they see you going through. But the killing part and the good part is they never see you stop, and so now they get to share into this with you, man. Yes.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Now, so as we look at coming back, we get our first group coming up, I think this week. And so, one, how have you been doing during this pandemic, man? And then as we look to come back, man, how has your role changed in going from school to school and supporting teachers?
Well, I think it's similar to teachers coming back as far as my role, man, is during the whole pandemic, I've just been adjusted like everyone else, but we all have had to adjust to do sort of role that we have in adjusting to the technology and really being forced to utilize technology that's been out there.
Mm-hmm.
We've never had to, utilize it for instruction in this way. So for me, I've just been adjusting this whole pandemic period, just figuring out, okay, how to best, use the technology to still deliver quality PD and service to teachers, making sure they have access, to able and then working with kids also to make sure they do that. As we transition back, it's sort of similar, man, really, number one, being safe with this COVID thing and at the same time figuring out, okay, how to best support them, at the same time with still adhering to our district rules and policy in response to COVID, to make sure that I'm giving that same support. So I think the only difference from this time is that it'll cut down on the volume of campuses that I'm able to kind of go to on a daily basis. So for me, I'll have to come up with a tighter schedule just to limit that, number of personnel on campus situation that we have. So instead of, I used to grind probably, 3-4 campuses a day. So I have to cut that down probably like 2 campuses a day. Just kind of minimize that on campus personnel, everything. But the service will still be there, but I have to minimize the number of campuses that I have.
Yeah, that's one thing I was wondering about, man, because and I've been doing the contact tracing, man, and finishing up that course, and man, it's a bunch of ways that thing can go, as far as having to find out who was where and when did you do this, and so that cutting down and seeing those two campuses really makes sense. So that sounds like it's going to be a good plan because, like you say, so many ways as we've learned that teachers can still get that access. Whether it's through a Zoom or a telephone. So that face to face is limited, but good idea, man. And so when we look at our kids, man, I know our plan was rough in the spring, but as the fall comes back, I think nationwide everybody's kind of picked up on it, made some tweaks. As districts have caught up with each other, right? And so I don't know still if even with the new tweaks, our sped babies had an improvement to their lesson because what they need, it really can't come across that screen. And so as they come back into the building, man, what is the first thing that you think teachers gen ed teachers and sped teachers should be looking to collaborate on?
I think number one, they're gonna have to really collaborate and figure out how that's gonna look in the classroom. Because like you say, we're transitioning back. We don't know how many are gonna be in the class, but even with that, we know that we still have protocols we're gonna have to adhere to. So in conversation with some of my teachers, last week we were talking about, what impact is that gonna have on our small group? What impact is that gonna have on us being in the classroom and being around 30 kids? Well, I think that they're gonna have to really think about the setup of the rooms this time. So being that we have these safety protocols, and I'm just throwing it out as an example, you still want to pull a small group. That means that, that small group is going to be a little bit smaller. Instead of 5, 6 kids, it may be 3 kids at a time because we got to have a certain amount of space to get our students. We want to make sure you do have some type of shield or things up in the classroom that we can kind of put another barrier for safety. We can do that. So I think number one, it's going to be a collaboration on the structure of how it's going to look in the class when I come to that class, and what specific model can I probably pull off, if any, right now. And to me personally, I'm thinking number one, the first couple of days, really, we come back, it's going to be like the first day of school.
Yes, sir.
In the building. So I think they're going to have to kind of just start with baby steps. Probably think about, just utilizing one teach, one assist, where the teacher can kind of, go from student to student at a safety distance, and then sort of throughout the week figure out, based on the structure of the class and how many kids we have, okay, what other model is feasible and how many students should can I pull if I'm able to pull small groups to really differentiate my instruction.
And as you talk about those models, that was really my next question. Was there a specific model that you had already been saying, I believe I want to try this more than any other model, or like you say, it's really going to be a fill it out?
Yeah, it's going to be kind of a filling out, but I still feel like we can pull off some, station models in which the kids, at a couple at a time, 3 different stations, the kids kind of rotate from this teacher or this teacher. But again, the smaller group number of students, the better. And that way, they'll limit the amount of students in a group. So I believe we can do a station, because that's going to, number one, that's going to space kids out. So we want to maximize the amount of space that we have in the classroom anyway. Then number two, we can still pull off, alternative teaching, in which, the teacher is still doing the whole group thing, but then that sped teacher, or if they're on the first row, can pull a couple of students, in a certain area of the room and work with them in a small group. So I think both of those are really feasible because number one, it minimizes the number of student to teacher ratio. So we can do that, but at the same time, make sure that we still have some sort of, adhere to those protocols in place and have some sort of, visible barriers between students at the same time to maximize our safety procedures.
Man, okay, man, I appreciate those answers, man, and that insight. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take a little quick break, get into a little music, man, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about a little bit more about getting back into the school. Then I want to just check in on that doctorate process, man, and see how how you feeling, man, and what's next for you after you cross that stage, man. So hang
All
around with
right.
us. Yes, sir.
You're listening to the KTTeeV radio show on 95.3 Jams.
What did you KTTV radio show? Welcome back. This is KTTV, and we are here on 953 Jams, and I want to finish up my conversation with Dr. Hughes. Doc, are you still with us today?
Stay with you, brother.
Man, so me and Doc have been talking about coming back into class through the special education lens, and what did that look like with the teacher and co-teacher collaborating but still maintaining safety. And so Doc, I know we talked about the kids who are coming back, but then we got to think about it. We have some kids in class, but we also have kids online. And as we look around districts, we have people doing both at the same time. And so, in your expertise or your field and your role, have you already addressed with the teachers what does that look like if they have kids doing the same, and how does that group go?
Yeah, the past maybe a couple of weeks kind of talked about that, and I think that's going to be a ongoing problem solving kind of dynamic within all districts, because it is tough providing support simultaneously if it's that model when kids are in the class and you have kids maybe online. So I think that's number one. That's going to be a technology issue to figure out. Number one, do we have enough bandwidth to support all of that? If not, then they're going to have to go through the notion of, okay, for our students who are accessing this information online, then I think that from the teacher's perspective, they have to think about doing some pre-recorded, lessons for students so they can access those through of course, in our district, through our, Schoology platform and things like that. So we're going to have to be creative to kind of address that. I think it can be done, but it's going to take a collective effort to really brainstorm, effective ways to do it. Because, like you're saying, if the students coming, back to the school building, brick and mortar, they're going to receive their services. But in regards to our special education, is still different. At some degree, when you're receiving a certain service online, virtually versus in person. So we're going to have to still utilize those virtual tools. And I'm going to throw out there math, like we're still going to have to be able to kind of teach our students to use virtual and as much as possible online, try to simulate best as possible what they would receive in person. But that's still going to require some collaboration and a lot of front end work on our teachers and specialists' perspective.
Yes, sir. So much front end work, man. If there was never a time that is really been essential that collaboration happened between GNED and SPED, man. Now is the time, because it's a maze, and it's a maze that has never been done before. So can nobody really give you a heads up on which way to go? So like I said, we gotta talk each other through it, man.
Oh yeah, for sure, because it's different. And like you said, every step in this whole situation has been new, uncharted territory. So it's always been a moving target that we've had to adjust to. But I will say this, on the bright side, about a year from now, everything that we are forced to adjust to structurally and to do, we should come out of this thing on the other side wiser, much more capability to address needs virtually, in person, collaboratively, and everything, because we're forced to. So if we just keep that growth mindset, and we'll be okay on the other side.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I do believe things will never be the same, and like you say, we will come out of this smarter, wiser, and better prepared to serve kids. So let's ride, man. We've been in this thing, but it's about to get revved up. So let's get it. Like I said, we're talking to Dr. Kellian Hughes today, and so make sure that if you have any questions before Dr. Hughes leaves us, that you are going to the Facebook Live and typing in your question in the comment box, and so that way we can have something. if you need some feedback or anything as your child gets ready to head back, or maybe if they're online. So Doc, now we're back to this doctorate, man. So you're doing special populations, leadership. And so what's the plan after you graduate, man? What do you want to do with this?
Oh, well, you know what? I have actually been speaking to a good colleague of mine probably a year ago. 'Cause I'm a really a forward-thinking person, and so I knew even before I finished this, there were some things I kind of want to tackle. Number one, and kind of conversate with my advisor. I definitely, gonna kind of step my toe in the collegiate ranks and try to impact some, first-year teachers or prospective teachers and start, teaching some courses and things like that. So that's truly my end game. My end game is to, like I said before, I want to be a replica of my professor in college. So at the end of the day, I do want to have that impact on the collegiate level. Number two, I knew that, according to the field that I work in, I wanted to impact, students, but also impact parents. So as right now, I'm kind of starting early with my sort of empowering consultation service for parents and students. So I'm starting that as well. So it's called Kids, Parents, First Learning, and it's basically an empowering service where I can provide services for students with special education, of course, students who have math struggles. But at the same time, I feel like in kind of helping the community, we have to empower parents. So I'm providing the same service for parents. So I'm hoping to kind of really get that started within my community and surrounding community to sort of help parents get a grip on their child's educational needs, whether it's special education needs or math needs. I really want them to be in their student shoes, in their kids' shoes, so they can experience and understand how they learn and kind of empower them to provide that learning themselves. So I'm going to get that off the ground in a little bit.
Man, you think about those PDs, man, where it's especially a PD, and then they really give you that experience. I think I was in one training, man, and the lady was just firing off, just firing off directives, man. Do this, no, stop, do this, turn this in. Did you say this? And she said, now, I want you to think of the SPED kids in your class, and that's how fast things are moving for them. And it was a real life experience, man, that really showed us, the eyes to a SPED learner. So any way that we can get people to feel that empathy and the importance of slowing down, of reading those accommodations and modifications in their file before dealing with that student, man, I think that's going to be very impactful to the future of SPED.
Oh, for sure.
Yes, sir, man. And so, any words of wisdom that you have for anybody heading back, man, as a veteran teacher, man? I know you dropped some jewels on us on the podcast last time, but any words of wisdom as we get ready to tackle these things again, Dr. Hughes?
I'll say first and foremost, man, we have to practice what we preach, right? So in education in general, over the last couple of years, our buzzword or phrase has always been having a growth mindset, right? So I would say that's the biggest piece. The biggest piece, I would say, let's go ahead and practice what we preach. Let's walk what we talk. We try to instill in kids to have a growth mindset. So right now, because of this whole situation, we're forced to kind of look in the mirror and say, okay, I'm a teacher, I'm instructional specialist, I'm a principal, admin, whatever, occupation you have. But now we're forced to look in the mirror and ask ourselves, okay, what can I do to make this situation better or be more impactful for our students? Because we can rattle off 100 things in about 10 seconds of what's wrong, of things that may go wrong, and things, there's certain barriers that's up, but now we have to walk kind of walk that talk and figure out, okay, here's a bump in the road. Let me figure out how I'm going to make sure that everything is accessible for teachers, technology-wise. That's how I'm going to make sure it's accessible for students. And still maintain that culture of basketball on campus. So we can be tricky principles, but now I think that's the biggest fight. We're here, can't turn back, so we got to walk our walk, practice what we preach.
That's it, brother. Man, I want to say thank you for that today, man. If you can just hang around till after the music break, man. I want to see if anybody has some questions in the Facebook Live for you, man. as we get ready
Okay.
to wrap this up. So, like I said, we've been talking to Dr. Kellian Hughes today, and so if you have any questions regarding the SPED and just getting back to school, any concerns that you have, Doc is a leader for special populations. He also supports our teachers in his everyday role, and so I want you to kind of get logged in to the Facebook Live and leave a question or feedback for Doc. He will be with us for a few more minutes as we get back from our break, but after that, you'll have to email me. So make sure you get logged in. This is the KTTeeV radio show here on 953 Jam.
I got drip for sale. 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 I do ways to the law, me a road that's always to the bottom of the coast.
We're trying to service these. So we want to make sure we do that. So yeah, but if somebody wants, they can reach out to me, through my email and need any other type of services, I'd be happy to provide that.
Yes, sir, man. I appreciate that, Doc, man. You have a great week this week, man.
Oh, you too, brother?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Talk to you soon, bro.
Okay.
All right, y'all. That was Dr. Kellian Hughes. Like I said, I want to just cover a few topics with us on this special education, and just making sure that we are able to, just get a little background of the way things should be happening as we come back. This is really uncharted waters, and a lot that we have to face. And so the more information that we know and the more we're able to get ahead of the game, the better we can be. What to do, everybody, and welcome back to the KTTeeV radio show here on 953 Jams. Man, I hope y'all had a chance to listen to that interview today with Dr. Hughes, man. It was all about special ed inclusion, and what kind of models can teachers and co-teachers, so gen ed teacher and your SPED teacher, look at to get kids back in, to get them safely learning, because we got a lot of work to do, y'all. Some kids have been struggling where they didn't log in, or some did log in but just didn't get it because they need that experienced person there. So as we look at all of those pieces, I want to say again, thank you to Dr. Hughes for stopping by. Now, as we roll on in the show, you know that we have to talk about money. So we get into our Money Matters section. And like I say, with this, it became important to me because we have to change the way we see our money, our relationship with our money. And so I dealt with my boy Jose. I want to say it had to be about a good year, man. I tell y'all all the time, I just watched him. And so finally I said, man, I am jumping in. And ever since then, I'm telling you, it's been a crazy ride with the stock market and just dealing with the emotional ups and downs. So, we got a few things coming up, but I'm telling you, if I had not been changing the way I see money, it would have been some days where I've been sick, but that probably would have cost me more money in the long run. So big shout out to my boy for that. So one thing that I looked at in thinking about money for this week is, man, when you got one income, it is very hard to get on the road to building wealth because a lot of the times you're taking a lot from that income to manage the household. And so then when do you ever get ahead? And so what we're looking at today is really just money management tips that improve your finances. So it could be through your job, but then it's talking about how do you leverage that job to increase the money that's coming from there but also as other few tips that create a little bit more income for you from passive income to just a bare hustle. And so the first one that we will talk about today will be make the most of your full-time job. So even if you don't like your full-time job or you dream of launching your own company, today it is the most immediate place where you can probably make more money. The simple fact about people in working their job is most people are underpaid, but they accept that amount of money they're getting because they're either afraid of getting fired if they ask, or they don't know how to ask to get a raise. But I will tell you this today, you have the power. So don't be afraid of your boss. Don't be afraid to figure out that figure and really stand up for yourself, because at the end of the day, you have to leverage that paycheck for yourself. So for many years, many employees had the upper hand and really been taking advantage of the system as it's been hard to negotiate. But I tell you this, the power dynamic has shifted, and in many companies and industries, employees have the leverage. There's so many jobs in this economy right now to get filled, and talent is in high demand. So don't settle for the status quo. You can go in there and negotiate for yourself. I read a book that everything is negotiable, and so, man, I try to get it in whenever I can. The next tip that we have for managing the money and increasing the revenue is starting a side hustle. So if you know me, then you know, man, I'm gonna keep me a side hustle. So sometimes, in this case, it may be 3 or 4, but I'm like I say, it's hard to leverage that income and build that wealth when you're only coming from one income. So diversifying your income can be just as important as diversifying your investment portfolio. So by starting your side hustle, you bringing cash in, you giving yourself the additional financial security. And so your side hustle is really anything that you can do to make money outside of your full-time job. So while you can side hustle doing anything, you're more likely to have success if you start a side hustle you enjoy. So that's where you can set your own fee and your own hours. So you think about Lyft. While it's not bad to be a driver for a Lyft or Uber, there are still limitations because you're limited by the hours you can drive in a day, and then how much you can get paid is set by the company. Whereas if you start your own side hustle, you manage your own time, you decide what you charge, and you have the potential to make more money. Our third tip is, and I say this every week, y'all, and one day I'm gonna take my own advice too. Start budgeting, right? So there are 2 types of people, those who like budgeting and those who don't. Pretty much simple, right? And I'm not gonna lie to you, I am not the biggest fan. I know it's important, but I am not the biggest fan of it. And I would say for me, sometimes it reinforces a scarcity mindset where you spend too much time focusing on cutting back small purchases. I mean, this is the stuff that I most enjoy, you know? And so when you're doing that, you're tracking every penny going in, going out, and it takes a lot of time. So while it is important, if you're that person who thinks it's important, maybe that's where you focus. So you learn how to do those budgetings. But for me, I simply focus on optimizing my 3 biggest expenses, and that's looking at my housing, my transportation, and my food. You know, when you're thinking about looking at those, the average American family spends almost 72% of their income on these 3 expense categories. So if you're a budgeting person, go ahead, get that budget out, find you some apps that's going to really track. But if you're not budgeting, then really look at how you can leverage the 3 biggest expenses that we fall in: your housing, your transportation, and your food. The next one is making your checking and saving account work for you. Prime example, you know, you think about your money that sits in the bank, Bank of America, Chase banks. And so all of these places really don't have the money, really don't have the percentages to say that that is high yield, right? And so what you want to do is have a direct relationship between the percentage of your income that you're saving the saving rate and the amount of time that it takes you to retire early. And how do you do that? You combine your high yield savings account and your high interest checking account. You make sure that all of that money is always working for you instead of just sitting there. So I say it again, when you're thinking about savings and checkings, you want a high yield savings account and a high interest checking account so that we can make sure that the money that's just sitting there is doing something else for us. So that's another way. And our last way that we can look at leveraging our income, saving some money, is by investing. So we invest early, we invest often, and we invest as much as we can, right? And so while we can invest literally in anything, the three most dependable investments are stocks, bonds, and real estate. So the reason they're the most dependable is that we have a lot of historical data about how they perform, right? And so we're able to control a number of the key variables, and this is how we maximize our investment returns while minimizing your risk. And so then when you think about those stocks, bonds, and real estate and stocks, like when I first jumped out there, I really didn't know which way to do it. I lost a lot of money fast. But then as I went on, I learned more about learning about companies and jumping into good companies where I am minimizing my risk. The same with real estate. There's so many things which you can control as far as where you're buying this house, the market price and when you're buying it. So jumping into investments as early as you can. That was our Money Matters section. And basically it was all about maximizing our income and improving our finances. And so that is one, making the most of our full-time job, starting a side hustle, make sure our budget is on tight. And if it's not a budget that you're using, then it's looking at how you're leveraging your housing, your transportation, your food, looking at high yield savings accounts, high yield, high interest checking accounts, or whichever one too. You knew what I said a few minutes ago. But that investing early, often, and as much as you can, those are the things what's helping us to change the way we see money, to hold on to a little bit more of our money, and to grow our money. We got to figure out how to make it work for us. And so I hope everybody was able to get something out of that Money Matters section. We're going to get back into a little more music. We'll come back and do our story of the day, our community heroes. We have a lot coming up, so make sure that you're locked into the KTTeeV radio show here on 953 Jams. It's kind of like the story is a relative story, right? And so we're able to listen to almost like a fable or something, but at the end, it really gives you a good message. And so today's story says, you get what you give. So once there was a farmer who regularly sold butter to a baker. One day the baker decided to weigh the butter to see if he was getting the exact amount that he asked for. He found out that he wasn't, so he took the farmer to court. The judge asked the farmer if he uses any measure to weigh the butter. The farmer replied, "Your Honor, I'm primitive. I don't have a proper measure, but I do have a scale." The judge replied, "Then how do you weigh the butter?" The farmer replied, "Your Honor, long before the baker started buying butter from me, I have been buying a pound loaf of bread from him. Every day when the baker brings the bread, I put it on the scale and I give him the same weight in butter. So if anyone is to be blamed, it's the baker." So I want you to catch what just happened here, right? So every day, the butter that the baker bought, he would really give it. So the baker would give the butter to the guy who was getting the bread, right? And so the guy giving the bread will weigh the butter every day. And he said, "I don't care if he said it's supposed to be 1 pound. I'm giving him back whatever he gives me." And so it's only when you see the difference in what's going on your end that you want to have a problem when you've been shorting this guy the whole time. So I would say that to say there is a positive correlation between the effort one puts in and the benefit that one receives, right? So don't, what's goose good for the goose is good for the gander. People tell me that all the time. But it's basically looking at, don't be the guy who's selling something short, and then when they come back short, you got a problem, right? Just understand, if you shorten on one end, you need to be prepared to be shorted, because you get what you give. And so that is our story for the day. I hope that somebody was able to understand that and really think about the relationship that they're going into and what are you giving, in some cases, it's hard. You give what you can because there's so much going on. But in some cases, if you got that time, man, and you just want to go play the game and holler at the homies or something before you giving back, then I want you to assess that situation. We'll take a quick break because I want to do something for the city. And when I say the city, I'm talking about the hometown, Shreveport, Louisiana. I want to just represent a little for that. And then when we come back, we're going to get into our community heroes, and we'll do our productivity tip, and then we'll start landing this plane. So stay tuned to the KTTeeV radio show here on 953 Jams. Shreveport, stand up.
You're listening to the KTTeeV radio show on 95.3 Jams.
Welcome back to the KTTeeV radio show here on 953 Jams. Man, we are still rolling, dropping some good hits for y'all, man. But more than that, we are trying to put this knowledge into the atmosphere, man, whether that's talking about our money, talking about our quotes. So if you are not following us on KTTeeV.com, where you're able to go in and stay locked into the videos for the podcast, or if you're not tuned in to the audio podcast on KTTeeV.com, then you're missing out, because we're taking a lot of that knowledge and then we're digging deeper into it by the time it comes to the radio interviews. And so if you're only hearing the radio interviews, then you're missing half of the story. So I want everybody to make sure that they're locked in and tuned in. So follow us at KTTeeV.com for all that information. It's all about for us bridging the gap between the school and the community. So on the show, I like to have the community heroes, and that just highlights someone, and maybe not in Houston, maybe not in Shreveport. It could be anywhere in the world. But as we look to change this school thing, I've just been highlighting so many people who are here in the city of Houston, as everybody is pinching in. But if you know somebody that is doing good in the community, then I want you to email me at kttv@gmail.com. Tell me their story. What are they doing for the community? And I will make sure that we highlight them not only on the station, but also give them a shout out on the Facebook as well. Because we really want to make sure that we're pushing each other to be the best every day. And so this community hero is some Houston teens that have launched a free tutoring service for K through 8 students. And so basically what they're doing is they created a company called Limitless Minds in Houston. In July, 3 high school juniors launched this free tutoring service for kindergarten all the way up to 8th grade. And they said that they think it's going to be free. And because it's free, it's really helpful. Because it's not parents' fault that this is happening, right? It's not anyone's fault. And so you can't really charge anyone right now. And so you think about the awesomeness that's been instilled in these young ladies, that they would give their time for free. And I'll tell you this much, they are looking for tutors. So if you would like to help, you can fill out your application online at Limitless Minds website. Basically, you jot down the days and the times that you can work for your family and the subject that's challenging you. And so you can log in to there, put in the application, and get some free tutoring if you need to. You'll be matched with one of 38 local high school tutors who are open to options, like whether you want to Zoom, use Microsoft Teams or Google Hangouts, right? So look at these young ladies, man. When we're thinking about Houston coming together, what Houston Strong represents, these ladies are basically trapping right off the next door app. So they're reaching out to people in their communities, and they are providing a free tutoring service from kindergarten to 8th grade. Now, they high school students, so don't hey, look now. We're not doing all high school, but if you're K through 8, then you can go to the Limitless Minds website, and these young ladies will set you up with some free tutoring. And so we want to make sure that we are highlighting once again our community heroes who are giving of their time like that. Before we even go, big shout out again to boss lady, man. Miss Riley is in the community. Every day I'm looking at her online is some kind of giveaway, some kind of food drive. So big shout out to her. She was already highlighted as one of the community heroes, but thank you. But big shout out to Limitless Minds Houston, as these young high school seniors are giving back to K through 8 students for free. And so that's how school is going. So big shout out to them. I want to just give us a little bit more of this good music as we get ready to close out for these 2 hours. But once again, if you have not followed us on all social media, make sure you're tuned in. Tomorrow, Monday morning, 8 a.m., we'll be making a big announcement. So check us out on IG. Check us out on the Facebook page. Make sure you join us for this announcement. We have something big that's about to happen, and it's going to shock and reshape H-Town. So keep it locked in here. Like I said, we got Throw Off Entertainment. They're going to be pulling up, man, them boys putting in work for y'all. So they'll be pulling up at 7. Make sure you listen to me. Make sure you're following up with them. Because they'll have a lot of good information and a lot of good things happening. We're going to get a few more jams in, then we'll be back to land this plane. This is the KTTeeV radio show here on 953 Jam. Welcome back to the KTTeeV radio show here on 953 Jams. This is KT. Man, it is coming down to the close of the show, man, and I wanted to thank everyone that tuned in today to listen, whether you were through the Facebook Live, whether you were through the app. Make sure that you're following us during the week on KTTeeV.com or either KTTeeV, all social media platforms. That way you can stay up on who's going to be on the show this Sunday, because we have a lot of good interviews that are lined up and scheduled for you guys. And so I want to make sure that we are able to put things out to the community that is making a difference. You know, we got voting coming up. So we got voting drives coming up, making sure that we're active, making sure that we're out in the community, because we got a lot on the line for November, guys. And we can get 4 more years of the same, or we can give somebody else a shot to do it better, to bring us closer together. So let's make sure that we are coming in and working together. Now, I wanted to close out with our last segment of the show, and this is where we really give our productivity tip, because if I'm not setting you up for the week on a Sunday evening, then what are we doing? So let's make sure that we have a good jump start on the week. And so I'll start that by saying, Sunday clears away the rust of the whole week. And that's a quote by Joseph Addison. And in my opinion, that is true. If we want to have a productive week, then we need to start planning that on Sundays. If that's not your cup of tea, then at least begin your preparations on Friday afternoon or Saturday. But don't let that Monday roll up and you haven't thought about the week, right? So it's Sunday, it's ugly outside. I know you want to kick back and relax. Every weekend I know it's that, because it's the weekend. But is it really going to be the end of the world if you just do a little planning work? Map out your week while watching a football game or your favorite star show, because I know we're going to be looking at that Power series, but that's a whole nother conversation. We're going to get back to that. But while you watching that Power, map out your week. think about what's happening, you know. Set aside about an hour, jot down everything you need to get done this week. In particular, think about your daily routines, your recurring events, your deadlines, and most importantly, your goals. Next, mark them off first so that nothing else gets scheduled ahead of them. Don't forget about anything else that you penciled in. Remember, you're going to that concert with a friend, you got family coming to town, so be ahead of the game by penciling everything in. I know it may sound like a little work, but if it gets all of the commitments out of your head, from there you can begin to plan accordingly. For example, because you having family coming on Thursday, or you got them coming on Friday, you want to make sure you get the most important work done in advance, because we all know when they show up, life has changed, right? So, in thinking about being productive this week, sketch out your ideal week in your head. Don't let Monday be the day. Give yourself Sunday to kind of knock that rust off for the week. And I think that will put us ahead of the game. You know, that will do it for us on the KTTeeV radio show here on 953 Jams for the week. I want everybody to focus on being productive this week, focus on one thing at a time, and really getting tuned in to what's happening, but not forgetting about the importance of staying safe. As I stated earlier, we are going up to 75% capacity in most restaurants and bars, places in public this week. So make sure you maxed up, but also making sure that you are getting out to support someone, because remember, maybe that 75% is the difference between them paying the rent or not. So as we get out, support, putting back into our economy, getting back open, making sure you are staying safe, staying masked up and focused. If you got kids coming back, if you're a teacher and you're accepting kids this week, make sure you're staying safe, keep your mask on, and really do your best to give the kids that we have coming in all that we got. You know, it's gonna be a lot of things that they want to talk about before the lesson. So giving them the grace to be able to come in and share, as they'll be excited to see you in person. All right, this is the KTTeeV radio show here on 953 Jams. We will see you next week. 100.